dreams collide. High road roaring every night. Spotlight on Spurs, feel the fight. Spotlight on Spurs, hearts ablaze through the cheers and cloudy days. From the lane to glory's flight. Spotlight on Spurs, shine so bright. Echoes rise when we take the field. This is passion, nothing concealed. Through the tackles, joy ignites. Spotlight on Spurs, burning lights. Feel the tempo, sweet and wild. London's warriors never mild. Every challenge we endure. Spotlight on Spurs, loud and pure.
What's up, guys? Luke here from Spotlight on Spurs. Another international break, as if we haven't had enough already. But we're back in the midst of another one. England are currently winning 2-0 if it hasn't finished. Harry Kane hasn't scored. But we don't really care about England anymore because we used to have 17 players in the squad and now we have basically none. So who cares? But back for another episode. As always, the main man, Chris. How are we doing, mate?
All right, mate, not bad. All good. Just ticking by and trying to enjoy the international break. Just waiting for some juicy gossip to come through for Spurs.
I mean, we love an international break and we love a bit of juicy gossip. We've got our old Joe Lewis today. The news is always coming out about Spurs during the international break. We'll get into that shortly. Billy coming back on again. Thank you very much, sir. How are we doing?
Yeah, man, pleasure to be on. Shame that England didn't manage to score against Serbia. Don't count those goal scorers. So yeah, 0-0. And we go again.
I don't blame you. I did actually just say to Chris before we joined that we absolutely can't be talking about anyone scoring from that side of the fence. Absolutely.
Tell you what,
not.
though, mate. Fuck it. Bit of Troy Parrott, eh? Brace against Portugal. Bring him back. Bring him back.
What the wonder kid that took 15 years to come to fruition, but what a wonder kid he is. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, did Ronaldo get sent off in the same game as well?
Ronaldo tears, literally.
So
there you go.
Bless him. So maybe that's the handover of the torch. You got Ronaldo passing over to Troy Parrott. I did see something on X saying about how athletic Ronaldo was when he all he done was do an overhead kick and hit the post and missed, and people were still raging about it. We're celebrating about it. Absolutely crazy.
Piers Morgan is crying tonight somewhere. Piers Morgan.
Is it just me, or do them interviews get more and more weird?
Oh, mate, have some shame. Do you know what I mean? Have a little bit of shame.
It's so strange. Just basically just got someone going on another show just talking about how great they are and how terrible everybody else is. It's really weird mix. And
talking about how much better looking he is than David Beckham. Like, what are you doing? You're two 40-year-old, you're men in your 50s and 40s. What are you doing?
But you know what? I didn't even think of it like that. You know, you forget that Cristiano Ronaldo's 40 years old.
Yeah, he's
40
and he's
still sitting there trying to argue his case on everything, basically. What has the international break done to us? We start a show talking about Piers Morgan. Oh Lord, here we go. Amongst the fan base, especially in the last few weeks, it's been, to be fair, it's been crazy since the start of the season, really. I always felt like we was going to go through this period, especially with the whole Frank Ange and Angie and Ange out, and how it got quite horrible and toxic, I suppose, towards the end of last year. But obviously Thomas Frank came in, and there were some fans that were absolutely over the moon with it, others that were not so happy about it. Currently sitting 5th in the Premier League. We're 10th in the Champions League, and obviously there was that pretty poor Carabao Cup performance where went out to Newcastle as well. FA Cup hasn't been drawn just yet. So I just wanted to kind of have a chat, really, just and find out what people thought where we're sort of at. Is this a sort of level that we expected to be at? Is it better than we thought? Worse? Is it to do with the playing style? We'll kind of get into it. But I suppose a thing that is always forgotten about in football is what did we expect before the season started, right? Because as I said before we came on, we're currently sitting 5th, and I think a lot of fans at the start of the season sort of expected that to be probably at the top end of where we would finish, and now it's not. Some fans, some sections of the fans, again, it's not all, but some sections are saying that that's not good enough. So, Chris, can you remember where you expected us to finish at the sport this season?
I'm sure I said 8th. I'm pretty sure it was 8th. That was my prediction, and it was just based on us probably not being good enough to get into the top 4, as in the squad of players not having the depth, because obviously we strengthened, but we didn't strengthen in numbers. But it was mainly, again, you've got a new manager coming in, new coaching tactics, new just tactics in general, a whole new setup, and you just don't know how that's going to fit in with the players in the squad, and how quickly they're all probably going to buy into it and then actually produce that on the pitch.
But also, and I completely agree, but also, regardless of whether you like Frank, don't like Frank, whatever, this is a different level that Frank's not managed at. Like, especially when you're talking of the Champions League and what the expectations are at the club. Billy, where did you see us being? So obviously, once the summer signings came in, where were you expecting us to kind of be?
I agree with Chris, man, about probably, I think if you take into account last season and the fact that we finished 17th, that's always a slightly disingenuous take on things, because there's that whole the injuries and the fact that we allegedly give up the Premier League. So I think 17th is I don't think we were the 17th best squad in the league that season. Put it that way. It's a very complicated season, as we've been into hundreds and hundreds of times. But at the same time, I don't think it's a mile off where the quality of the squad is. Like, we weren't, we shouldn't have been in the title race, something like that, because it was a pretty poor squad. Particularly since we've lost some superstars. And if we look at the last 5 years, we've lost Kane, we've lost Son, haven't really done a lot to replace either of them this season. And this is the first transfer window where we've gone out and signed a couple of players that go straight into the 11. So we're starting to do some decent things. So I had us about 8th. I thought in the back of I'm generally leaning quite optimistic as a Spurs fan. I thought, maybe we can get back in the top 6, get back in Europe. That'd be great. If we can go on a cup run in the Carabao Cup, fine. I think what's changed everyone's perspective and what's changed the sort of reality of that is that there are a lot of the teams in the Premier League that we might have expected to be really decent have been quite poor. Newcastle have been really poor. Chelsea have been mixed when they had a really good summer transfer window. Aston Villa started really badly. Liverpool, if you would imagine if when we'd have these conversations in summer, where do you think we'll finish? Imagine if someone said in the second international break we'll be on level points with Liverpool. That would just be an absolute crazy thing that no one would ever believe when they spent 450 million. But at the same time, we've not been, probably not as good as we should have been either. So it's a bit of a mixed one. And then you look at, teams like Man United, we're kind of in line with. Maybe they've started to get in a bit more form than we have. So, I think we're right in the sort of top 4, top 5 race. I didn't really expect us to be there. At the same time, I'm also not massively convinced we're going to come out of that race on top. So it's a bit of a weird one, because we're probably doing slightly ahead of where I thought schedule. But also at the same time, it doesn't really feel that exciting, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, 100%. And when you say it's a bit of a weird one, I mean, we last year, as you said, finished 17th and won a European trophy.
Yeah,
like, we just do weird. This is
there's a really I forget the name of the guy. Right, it's a really good TikTok. There's someone's done in the international break, not a Spurs fan. He's basically saying how weird the season is for Tottenham. Like, we're with the top of the away league form, second bottom in the home league form. Like, we have, I think we're the second highest goal scorers, second lowest XG. That's a really weird season, mate. As our beautiful football club is always weird, isn't it?
100%. And I think we're also bottom of the through balls into the attacking third as well. I see a new stat today. We're literally stone cold bottom. We're like nowhere. I don't think there's anyone anywhere near us
really
for
weird,
through balls.
Really weird season, mate. Really weird one.
Such a strange one, but you're right, and this is how I judged where I thought we would finish this year was not necessarily on how good we are, but how good other teams were. So for me, I always said Arsenal, City, Chelsea, Liverpool, they were better than us. They would finish.
I thought that would be the top 4 by a distance this year. But
and they are the top 3 at this moment in time. But as you said, Liverpool have had a bit of a poor run, and they are technically still a point off 4th. So that's how close it sort of is. And I think you're right. The amount of teams that are either been way off it or actually been miles better is quite weird. And I think Spurs, we need to find our home. You mentioned it just now, but I'd also add Forest into that. I thought Forest were going to struggle. I didn't think Forest were going to be as good as they were last year. But Forest are 19th. You've got Newcastle 14th. You've got Palace who are mid-table in 10th. And then Liverpool, who were really struggling. And obviously Villa have just sort of hit a bit of form now, but they've also been struggling. So it's kind of a little bit, our position is also about how poor others have been, as opposed to just how good we are. And I think that's exactly where some fans are kind of struggling a little bit.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like we're doing really well to be in 5th. It feels like everyone's just sort of, it's a bit of a weird race at the moment, isn't it? But at the same time, you know, I didn't think we'd have a chance of finishing the top 5 at the beginning of the season. Now it's almost like if we sort our home form out, we should be well up there, mate.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the thing, is that there is tiny little tweaks that can happen. And that could be a player coming back. It could be a player getting into form. Because, I mean, the start of the season, when Sarr started the season, he was kind of like, he looks like he's going to be a starter for the rest of the season. And then all of a sudden, he has a bit of a dip. And that could be because of just rotation, whatever. And then he's out of form now, and he was struggling a little bit. And hopefully we can have that with one of the wingers or the strikers. They go on a bit of a run. I mean, Richarlison, he's got a reputation amongst the fan base, but there was a period last year, I think it was, when he scored 10 in 10 or something crazy like that under Ange. So he could potentially go on a run. Obviously, Solanke potentially coming back. I think the long-term injuries, a lot of fans keep looking to them and saying like, well, we need to get those players back, but they're still so far off it. Dragusin played his first 45. You're expecting another month at least before he's back in shape. I don't think Maddison's going to play this season. I think Maddison, don't know whether you've seen his YouTube clips, which is brilliant, by the way. You could tell he was very much like, I can't get another big injury. I can't relapse. I can't get another. So he sounds like he's adamant that he's going to have to be like 200% fit before he's even worried about playing.
We're finally getting a couple of Kulusevski picks, though, aren't we? Which has been good, because that's been so long as well.
100%. And then this goes back to something I was saying last year about injuries, and I was like, we'll get them again this year, don't you worry, we'll get them again. And I know Kulusevski was from last year, but this just seems to be, what was it, the famous quote, I spoke to the medical team and they said it's not that bad. And then
it was just a knock. Literally, he said it was just a knock, and literally used those exact
was
words.
Doing star jumps. So I remember when he went off injured, I was like, yeah, just do a couple of star jumps, you'll get better. I was like, that's your medical team. Like, if you just snapped your ACL and your medical team's asking you to star jump, what chance have you got? But yeah, I completely agree. I think that there are certain areas, and I said this quite vocally when the transfer window ended, that the left winger and a striker were going to cause us problems. The fact that we didn't get at least one of them over the line, and I think that's come to fruition. I think we don't look dangerous enough. I think that's the problem for me. And I'm not going to compare it to last year, because last year we was pretty bang average as well. And Billy, you've already touched on the home form. I think the home form, in this calendar year, for the teams that have played and stayed in the Premier League for both seasons, we rank bottom in terms of home form, which is absolutely disgraceful. But Bill, we can even go one step further about this strange club and say, how can we be a club that can't win a league game at home, but we are unbelievable at home in Europe? Like
19 out of 22 wins or something like that. Unbeaten in 22. Mad.
It's just absolutely this club. I always say this club is absolutely crackers, and it's brilliant. It's not always brilliant, but sometimes brilliant. Spurs winning a trophy broke the matrix. 100% agree. 100%. That was not expected. That was almost like the world stopped and froze just for a period of when that happened. But as I said, so for me, this is kind of the very best that we was going to get in terms of being fifth. Now, you have to caveat that, to be fair, and say that obviously in one game week, which is obviously 3 points, Everton, who are 13th, are currently on 15 points. So one win, I know that obviously there's a lot that needs to happen, but one win is the difference between 13th and 5th. And I think that's another key part of this, to say, actually, what looks maybe a decent season within 2-3 weeks can change drastically to being a dreadful one.
Yeah, and I know we'll go into it in a bit more detail in a bit, but and 2 of our next 3 games are Arsenal away and Newcastle away in the league, aren't they? So it's a real make or break month.
You've also got PSG coming up, you've also like it's not just about league form, because obviously you're talking about what sort of attitude, what sort of mentality players are at, and if you go and you start losing games, and then
the one in between mentioned Fulham at home, which is now an absolute must win,
and we can't play at home, so it's all like this is the problem, is that, and I've always said this, that with the Premier League, when you're winning games and when you're flying and you're confident, there's a lot of games that you look at and you go, no, we'll get 3 points there, we'll get 3 points there. But if you've got any slight problem, any slight issues, too many injuries, or a couple of tough back-to-back games, and you're on a bit of a losing run, you look at Fulham at home and you go, oh, I tell you what, that Fulham are 15th. We should not be saying to a team that are 15th at home, oh, I tell you what, we could slip up there. But in the Premier League specifically, that's what happens. I mean, who's bottom? Wolves. we all know what happened there. They were brilliant when they played us, but this again, it seems to be Spurs. But the one thing I was keen to say is that do we think that Spurs fans are realistic in their expectations and assumptions? Like, so for instance, there are a lot of fans that were saying that 5th to 8th is sort of where we should be at, and then there are some fans that are saying, well, actually we finished 17th last year, how can you expect us to go up 10 places? Like that's a hell of a lot. Now, as Billy already kind of went into, there is circumstances in that. I think that there was a focus on Europa League. I don't think it was intentional, as in we don't care about the Premier League, but I think players' minds specifically were kind of like, well, we can worry about that. That's going to be the main focal point. But injuries were obviously a problem, and there was a multitude of other stuff. But do you think, Chris, that Spurs fans are realistic in what their expectations are? And I don't just mean in terms of signings, I don't just mean in terms of where we're at, I just mean as a club, are we realistic in our assessment of where we currently are?
When you look on sort of Twitter and all these places where everyone goes and puts their views and their opinions, I feel like the goalposts change very quickly. So before the transfer window finishes and we sign Kudus, we apparently had Gibbs White in the back. All these players that we're bringing in, and everyone's going, "This is fantastic. We're gonna do well." And then your transfer window finishes, and you've played a couple of games, and I think we won the first 2 games, and we looked all right. We didn't look amazing, but we looked all right, and we got the points on the board, which was good. I think it's so quick to go, oh, we're going to finish 8th. That's be realistically where we are, because we've got a good enough squad to be the 8th best team in the Premier League, and that could be realistic because, again, new manager and new tactics, and everyone's got to get used to that. But I feel like if you was to go on and win a couple more games after if in the first 5 games we'd won 4 and drew 1, I feel like the goalpost would have changed straight away. But it's a bit unfair as well, because then you're sort of just expecting this amazing miracle to happen that's never going to happen. So I don't feel like Spurs fans are maybe not, I don't know if unrealistic is the right word to use, but there's definitely, when it's going bad, it's all doom and gloom, and how are we going to end up getting back to where we are? And I feel like the expectations at Spurs is that we should always be challenging for the top 4. That should be the minimum that we get, which is, I would agree with anyone that said that with Spurs. But there's also a lot of factors. No, I mean just in general. Every Spurs fan in general, I think if it was a case of we want to finish in the top 6, it'd be no, top 4. We need to be in the Champions League every season, regardless. That's what our aim. But again, with circumstances, with changes, there does come a lot of that, and I just think maybe short-minded, short-term minds maybe is what it is. I think people need to see. I think
that's all fans, to be honest with you. That's like,
yeah. You can't
look at Forest last year. They were 3rd, and they should have got Champions League, and they ended up getting Europa League, I think. And then like there was fans were like, I can't believe we dropped out. It's like, you get into the Champions League like this. Do you understand how much of an achievement that was?
And they basically they essentially got conference as well, didn't they? So
that's it. Yeah, they got conference, of course.
But then they got Europa League. Yeah.
But if you would have offered that at the start of the season, you'd have said, "Oh, absolutely, we're taking a Conference League. Like we're Forest." You know what I mean? So, I think that's a little bit of all fans.
Then they've sacked the manager that did it a couple of games later.
absolutely, like, it's absolutely craziness. What's going on at that club? That's just as bonkers for me as us
bizarre.
this season specifically. Like, you go from the most defensive manager you could ever employ to the most attacking manager you could ever employ. Wonder why it doesn't work, and then sack him and go back to probably what some would argue a worse version of the manager you originally started with, and all of a sudden he goes back to playing defensive football and they're picking up points again. It's like, oh, who'd have thought? Such a strange thing. But yeah, I think with Spurs, I think specifically, and you kind of mentioned it there a little bit, Chris, just about expectations and things like that. And I said it just before we came on air that at the start of the season we was talking about, as all fans, but we kind of talk about who we should be signing, the players that we should be bringing in, calibers, etc., etc. And one player that continuously came up was Harvey Elliott, saying that we should be signing him. He's an upgrade on what we have. He's this, he's that. And I consistently said I just think he's a bit of an idiot. He's a football player. He's a good player. He's a solid player. He played well every time Liverpool kind of leaned on him, which was never like, he was never a stonewall starter for him. Let's be clear. He was always a player that was kind of involved in a rotational basis, whatever. But just as I was scrolling through X, like we all do, it just came up to say that he's had, in the last 6 weeks, he has been restricted to just 4 minutes off the bench at Feyenoord in the Europa League. And when we go back, and I actually said this, I think the last time we was on, about Van der Ven, Spurs fans were absolutely fuming about Van der Ven. They were saying that we should have been signing Tapsoba. Tapsoba was the one, and we went for the cheap option and everything else. And I think that's what we do as fans. We just go so all in on an idea, and then it becomes really difficult to backtrack from that idea.
I think part of that as well comes with probably the transfer history as well. We always get speculation, and there's always this rumor that we're going to get the top end player, and we end up signing like the 5th choice who's come available because he's out of favour or where it may be, and then everyone goes, oh, we've just signed the cheap version because that's what, at the time, that's what Daniel Levy does. We just get the cheaper option because we're either hoping that they over exceed and the value goes up and we can sell on for a profit. So maybe there's a bit of that. But then, I mean, thankfully we did sign him because he's an absolute class act, and he's carried us when he's got the armband on and when not. He's for me, he's been the standout player this season. He's been absolutely quality, and I'm glad we did sign him, and I'm glad we have kept him. Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying. Like, we would go, if you go and speak to fans just about like, for instance, the recent transfer windows, none of them will, or very few of them will point to the positives in that. Very few of them will go, well, they got it really right with Van der Ven. We all got it wrong, but you all got it right. Do you know what I mean? Like, we won't do that because it will just be that's the expectancy, that's the level. And as I say, I don't think it's just Spurs fans. I think this is fans in general, just about being, how realistic are we? As you say, if you look in it from an outsider's point of view, and I was one of the ones that said, I think that depending on how things go for other clubs, we could potentially look at finishing 5th. But there will be people that would watch and they'll say, well, you were 17th last year and you think you can jump up 12 paces. Like, that is that realistic in how many other teams are gonna do that, especially on like a consistent sort of basis. So, but obviously with regards to Frank, quite a lot of the criticism that's coming his way, it seems to be, obviously, the home form is a massive problem. What do you think that the reason for the home form, because this isn't just a Frank thing, this is, as I said, this is the calendar year, so it includes Ange's tenure as well. What do you think, Bill, is the reason that the home form is struggling so much?
I think it's a really complicated question, and there's not one particular factor. I think there's loads in play. The biggest one, I think, at the moment, obviously, is the mentality. Like, we've got it in our head now that this is a thing, and that's transcribing onto players. Like, obviously, a lot of the conversation from the players, actually, and the press and the media, and Frank himself, which I said, again, it's not something I'm a massive fan of, to be honest with you, is talking about the atmosphere, and a lot of the sort of, I wouldn't say blame, but a lot of the conversation has been about the fans. I personally think that's completely out of order. I don't subscribe to this notion that it's ever the fans' fault or anything like that. I think, being the ones that are a professional football team, a Big Six team, aspirations to be a challenging team, you can't ever, in my personal opinion, I don't think you should be ever attributing blame to the fans. And I think, as we've seen over the last couple of weeks, generally speaking, at Tottenham, it's always been kind of the same. And this is even a more complicated question than one that you asked. Is the atmosphere bad because of the way that we're playing, or are we playing bad because the atmosphere is like that chicken and egg thing? But I think you've seen in the last couple of games at least that the atmosphere actually isn't that bad when we see some things on the pitch. Copenhagen, Man United, it was definitely improved. I think that there's, under Frank, not necessarily under Ange, but even under Ange a little bit, because he wasn't, he had grand ideas of being this incredible football style, but we didn't really see it in the second season at all, especially not in the Premier League. I think under Frank in particular, the style of play doesn't help at home, because we're very, at home we tend to have a lot of possession. And I think Tottenham's biggest problem under Frank at the moment is we don't really know what to do when we have possession. You mentioned there about the through balls. We mentioned that Xavi has been struggling a little bit. Players have been struggling to find Xavi a little bit as well. Again, it's starting to slightly uptick in the last few games. We saw Copenhagen, what it could potentially be. Man United in the second half in particular, I thought, we were decent. So I think the style of play comes from him. I think another big factor, mate, is our stadium is such an incredible feat of engineering. And such an incredible play, like the best football venue in the world, some would say, that teams just love playing there. Opposition teams just love playing there. It's very comfortable for them to go into the away end. That's like the best, got the best technology in the world. You've got the most incredible away dressing room that you'll ever have. You'll have a big day out with all your family there in London. Players want to come and play in our stadium, which I think is a really bad thing. Back in the day, football teams did not want to go to White Hart Lane and turn up at White Hart Lane and come. Now it's like every, a newly promoted club, it's like their biggest game of the season because they're playing in this incredible stadium in London. Like, I think our stadium is a bit too friendly for other teams as well. We haven't been able to make it a fortress at all. I saw a really worrying stat that I think we've had six less losses than Arsenal or something like that. And obviously they've been in there for nearly 10, 12 years longer than us, which is a massive worry. So I think there's so many different factors. For me, I think the biggest one at the moment is a mentality and just the style of play is not really exciting the fans at the moment. And then, there's this big thing about the atmosphere and the fans and whose fault is it, etc.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that I'm glad that you mentioned about the stadium, because that's one thing that I've been saying, that again, these are not the reason why. There's not a single reason why as to why we've been bad. There's a mentality problem. I do think that things get into players' heads. So for instance, I always use the Man City thing. If we play Man City and something goes against them, instantly they go, this is the team. This is the team that's just going to do us. Whereas if it was against any other team, they wouldn't even think about it. And I think that's probably a part of that plays into it. But I do think that is a factor in that, as you just said, if you want, in terms of not the stadium as a fan, but you're in terms of a rival, you want your stadium to be intimidating. You want it to be horrible. You want it to be small. You want it to be cold. You want it to be a nightmare. Our stadium is none of that. Our stadium is come and play here. It's one of the best stadiums in the world to play at, and players that they love playing there. And unless it's in a ridiculously horrible atmosphere, which I don't think is very common now in any stadium really, it's a lovely place to play. It's a brilliant place to play, and people want to come and play there. And that's not, as you said, you don't want rival players saying, "I want to go and play there."
And it's the same for the away fans as well. It's like the best day out for them. They get to be in an incredible stadium, all great away ends with like loads of them up there. Always looks brilliant. I always look at the away end when I'm at the stadium and think, God, I'd love to be there with Tottenham fans. I'd love to be an away fan in our own stadium at some time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. But as you said, there are so many different factors, and I completely agree. I think there have been certain occasions where we have seen decent football, and when we've seen them, I think the crowd have reacted. But your chicken and egg is exactly what you're saying, and that's correct in terms of people say, should the players do the fans, or it should be the fans that get the players up? The facts is that the fans have done their committal by spending the money every single time they turn up. So it's not for them to then bring your money and bring your support. It's almost like we brought our money, you bring us what we want to see, and then do you know what I mean? It's just this is transactional right now. It's not a case of the other way around. And I think especially when we see the right things, when we see players trying to do the right things, then I think the atmosphere, there's a respect there. Like even when, I mean, people talk about it as a negative, and I can understand it, But when you go back to that original Chelsea game, when we ended up having 9 men and got absolutely on the score line, got absolutely thumped, every single player got clapped off that pitch. It was a standing ovation.
Real
so
moment,
it's not,
yeah.
and that was because the fans fully understood what was being done, what was happening, that the players were putting it in, so they got rewarded for that, even though they got beat. And as I say, on the end of the scoreline, it's a rival team. It's quite a hiding, I suppose, in a way. And to be clapped off the pitch for that is because the fans responded to what they'd seen. So I think it's really unfair to really lay blame at the fans.
And what I would say, 100%, mate. And what I would say is this is a really significant problem now, because for a club like Tottenham, Big Six club, whatever you want to say about us, we're a Big Six club. We won a European trophy last year. We have aspirations of, finishing the Champions League, winning trophies. We spend a lot more than we used to as well. That's a fact now. We had a transfer window where we spent a lot of money. For a Big Six club like that to be the lowest home form in the country is an absolute disgrace. For a calendar year to have, we have three wins this calendar year. The next lowest is Wolves with 6. West Ham have got 7. Like, we're half the amount of the. That's an absolute. It's unforgivable. It's absolutely unforgivable, mate. You can't. This kind of thing just can't happen to a. It wouldn't any of the other Big Six clubs. This home form is such a serious problem now. It's become such a thing. 3 home wins for a club like Tottenham is a sackable offence for the whoever's. And I'm not blaming it on Frank because he's only been there for a portion of those games. But across a calendar year, it's unforgivable. It's absolutely unforgivable.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the only team that I can really think it was where it was sustained, because obviously it's not a season, it's a calendar year. Sustained issue was at Chelsea when they had that really bad year, but the next year they went and won the league. Yeah, like that's what big clubs do, don't they? You have a bad year and then you come.
Yeah, it's become such a problem, mate. It really has. I feel sorry for Thomas Frank because he's not been there for all of it, but it's bled into his season now as well.
Yeah, 100%. And as I say, I feel like that start of the season, you was always going to be like, if Spurs were top of the league right now, there would still be sections of the fan base that would be going, yeah, well, if Andrew was in charge, he'd have scored more goals and he would have done this and we might have done that. And if we were bottom of the league, then you'd have had both sets of fans. But I still think that people were so committed to Frank in a similar way. Funnily enough, a lot of the people that really backed Frank are kind of done what a lot of Postecoglou fans done, in the fact that they backed him so heavily that there's no criticism there. It's almost like we can't criticize him at all because we've backed him so much. But that's not the case. Like you can say, oh, if you backed Ange and now you didn't want Frank and then Frank's come in, Frank's still the boss. So I'm happy to turn around and say I wasn't a massive fan of Frank. I liked him from afar, thought he was brilliant at other clubs, and I like to see him in the league 100%. Bit like Jose Mourinho, I'd love him in the Premier League. I don't want him in charge of my club though, because it's an absolute basket case as it is. But it's almost like we can't say anything. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly, and I know the rest of the show that's what we're mainly going to be talking about. But I think you've got to say he's doing absolutely fine, isn't he? Like it's fine. It's not. I'm not going to stadium buzzing, but. To think anything lower than that, like to think that he's doing a bad job at the moment is pretty great. Like he's doing absolutely fine. Let's be real. Like we're in the top 5. We're unbeaten in the Champions League. It's annoying that we got knocked out the Carabao, but it's Newcastle away where we always lose. He's doing absolutely fine. And I think what you're describing is the way that not just Tottenham fans are, football fans in general, and everything online, particularly online. I wouldn't say it's the same in the stadium, but everything is so polarized, isn't it? Like you have to either be completely Franking or you're an Ange. You want Ange back. There's no, and as always with this kind of thing, the reality is somewhere in the middle, isn't it? Thomas Frank is doing absolutely fine.
Yeah, 100%. As I say, calls for him to be sacked, I just think are completely outrageous.
Mental.
But in terms of, and we've kind of touched on it quite a few times already, but how important is style of play to not only fans, but to Tottenham fans specifically? Chris, what do you think?
I remember years ago, when I was actually playing football myself, someone said to me,
badly.
Would you probably, would you take a season where you won 1-0 every game and you go and win the league, but the 1-0 wins are so boring, you go 1-0 up and then you defend for the rest of the game? Would you take it? And I was like, well, yes, because you win the league at the end of it. So of course I would take it. Yeah, but you've got to endure a whole season of playing boring football, but you're winning. I'm like, but it doesn't matter. We're winning. Like, the whole point of playing football is to win. Yes, you want to be entertained, but if we don't win, and as we see last season, we finished 17th, and I think if the 3 teams below us that went down, all it took was for probably one of them to maybe have a slightly better season than they had, and it could have been touch and go at the bottom. I don't think we would have gone down, but it would have probably have raised a few alarm bells. But I think, again, and then you've got the other side where if your team are playing amazing football, but you win 1, then you draw 1, then you lose 2, then you win 1, then you draw 1. It's like, yes, you're being entertained, and yes, you're getting that side that you want, but then you might not ever win nothing. So it's what do you want?
That's a bit like what we got on the Poch, right? Like, that's what it was like. It was like so good to watch, but we never did anything.
And that is exactly it. We were so. I think every Spurs fan loved to watch. I mean, going live to a game, home and away.
Best time in my lifetime, without doubt.
There was not 100%. A game you never wanted to miss a game. The end of last season.
Yeah, that's it.
The end of last season, I think I missed probably the majority of the games because I just thought I just can't put myself through it. I just know we're going to play bad. I don't care.
Not when you was on the pod though, right? You didn't miss the games because you watched the games because we were talking about the pod. Yeah. Okay.
When you started it, I had to keep watching them, and it put me through misery sometimes. But I think this season it's just interesting because I think even now, even before the games, you're debating. Even I mean, it's Arsenal next weekend. What formation is he going to play? How are we going to play? Who's going to start? Like, we're still sort of guessing what this is and whether Frank. I think we touched on it last week. Whether Frank does or doesn't know his best 11. Whether he has got different tactics and different styles that he likes to use different players for certain things. We spoke about obviously Jed Spence being more of a right back, or is he better at left back? How is he going to be the starter? Is Adogi coming back? So there's all these questions, and the biggest thing as well is that when you've got all this going on, and then on the pitch we're not playing well, and you're not winning games, it all then just starts to build a big case where it's like, well, what's going on now? Because we're not being entertained. We're not winning games. As you say, our home form is shocking. And it's like, what is there positive to look at? But at the start of the season, when Frank was announced, it was always going to be the case of we need this stage. And yes, that's why I think a lot of people said if we finish 8th, we've proven that we're better than last season, because the squad last season wasn't a 17th. We wasn't the 17th worst squad in that league. The players were better than that. For whatever reason, they just never performed to that level. This season, you've seen glimpses in the sense signing Javi Simmons. I think again, it was the expectations for him was he's going to come in and light us up. He's going to be the player that's going to unlock it. And I think he's still a bit slow. We've seen in the last couple of games where I think it was a Copenhagen game. There was some lovely 1-2 passes around us. There was some really good movement, and I think everyone is starting to build that relationship now. Kudus has come in and absolutely just improved us 100% on that right hand side. So there is a lot of positives to take from it, but I think there's so many other parts of our squad, the game, and the tactics and everything else that's just not. We're not getting a full picture, and it's unfortunately causing all these topics to come up, which I don't think is very fair. I think again we need to realise that we are going through a phase, and it's unfortunate that you've got Spurs fans who are paying all that money home and away, and all the travelling and all the time and effort it puts in, to then blame them for home game. I mean, the atmosphere is, whenever I've seen it on telly, it seems amazing. It's then when we get periods where we're not playing well, and then half time comes, they're letting them know you're not playing well, and rightly so. It's always been that way.
Yeah, but I'm happy to be playing. Let's say okay, we're playing okay, we're struggling in certain areas, but still 5th, right? Instead of
and exactly that. If we was playing, then
it'd be a different conversation. How important is the style of play to you, Bill? Obviously, going week in, week out, is it a case for you where you're happy that we're more structured, or is it just like for me personally, I love being able to watch defensive football. I love but I just love seeing the beauty of the game. I watched City the other day and just watched Doku, just an enigma, just getting the ball and just terrorizing player. I just love seeing that sort of thing, which always the Livers trophies at the end. So where do you stand on it, mate?
I think it's undoubtedly a thing for our football club. Whether we like it or not, we're not going to escape the fact Tottenham have we talk about the Tottenham way all the time. We talk about the DNA. Unfortunately, that is a thing, and you can dress it up however you want. Negative football is not going to fly with Tottenham fans. It never have, never will. And I think last season's an interesting case study because we won a trophy, but we didn't play particularly. I know Ange was all about good football, but we never really saw it in the second season. And Chris was just talking about it. Would you want to go and watch your team play terrible every week but win a trophy? We kind of had that last season. And I don't think many fans really... We loved Bilbao. Everyone did. God, yeah. But the rest of it was an awful season to experience.
Was pretty decent as well, to be fair.
Yeah. It was a horrific season to experience as a fan, actually watching your team week in, week out play terrible. And then we had the other extreme, as Chris was already saying, under Poch, where we played the best football I've ever seen in my life. Going to the stadium, loving it. I think if we're really honest as a football club, as a fan base, that is everything to us. It's the style of play. And I think it's because we all grew up with our dads telling us about Hoddle, about Gascoigne, about, all these flair players. Tottenham have always had flair players. They always have, Chris Waddle. Then we're all growing up together. We've got people like Bale. We've got people like Van der Vaart. We've got people like Aaron Lennon. Flair players and Tottenham go hand in hand. And some football clubs just have, their culture is just ingrained through generation after generation after generation. And part of our culture is being entertaining and having an amazing winger, an amazing, flair players. It's just what we're built on. And when we don't get it, and when we get the dross, it doesn't work for us. And you look at managers like Nuno, as he's shown when he's left Tottenham, he's an absolutely decent manager. He's doing well at West Ham, did a great job at Forest. It's just not going to fly at Tottenham, I'm afraid. We just don't. Mourinho, another example, it was never going to fit at Tottenham. Tottenham, you can say that we all want to win trophies, we don't get how we do it, but at the end of the day, Tottenham fans, we just want to be entertained, I think. And hopefully what we want to do, which we've never really quite managed to do, is find the balance of entertaining football and winning football. That's the ultimate goal for all of us. It's not easy, but it's possible. Look at Man City, Liverpool, PSG. PSG last season, watching their games, attacking football all the time and winning, smashing teams up. Barcelona the same. Attacking football is there if you can go and do it. So I really, truly believe in my heart that Tottenham fans need to be entertained.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've said this. We've got a friends group, and we've got a lot of different fans in there, but specifically the Chelsea fans. I remember having conversations with them when they was like Mourinho winning title after title, and I was like, that wouldn't. It just. I know it sounds mad.
It's to do. Yeah, it's to do. I honestly believe it's to do with your history, isn't it, and your culture. Like Chelsea have not. They don't have that same thing that we have. Liverpool are another team that. Liverpool are like us. If you're going to have a more defensive manager at Liverpool, it's never going to fly. Some clubs are just different, and that's it is. Of course, they are. Like Man United is the same. They have these expectations of being entertained because it's been built into them through generations and generations. And at Tottenham, we've always had the flair. We always have.
Yeah, that's exactly what I used to say. Was that look? I'm not saying that one season you might get away with it, especially if it delivers something at the end. But the next season, it's going to be like not. Right, there has to be improvement in the football. Like, I'm not going to accept this. I say it just would not happen. And maybe we're a special breed. I don't know, but I know for a fact that wouldn't be accepted.
Exactly. And bringing back to Frank, I think if we're playing like this now, it's 12 games into his first season. Fine. If we're playing like this at the end of the season and we're playing like at the beginning of next season, that's when I think the alarm bells will ring with the fan base.
Yeah, 100%. But also again, and it has to come back to about backing. About what players he's delivered, right? Because I always have this with when I came onto YouTube and I was backing Ange, and everyone would go to me, look at the amount of money that was spent under him. I'm like, yeah, in the 18 months before he left, he got one player to improve that 11, which was Solanke, and most argue that he's not good enough. So if Frank goes
and the absolute heartbreak is, mate, like we had exactly everything that we've ever wanted in Pochettino, an amazing style of play. Didn't back him. We didn't back him, and that's the biggest mistake that Levy ever made. Like we had the team, we had the style of play, we had everything, but we didn't have the squad. And if we had imagine giving Pochettino a window like the one we just had, mate, it's heartbreaking, isn't it? It's absolutely heartbreaking. 100%.
And you talk about home form. I mean, the last year at White Hart Lane, unbeaten in the league. Like
17 out of 19 wins, mate.
We turned that into an absolute fortress. No one wanted to come to White Hart Lane. They just knew.
You just know you're going to win 4-0, 3-0. Smash up teams.
How did that team not win not win a league, not win a cup,
He
not
didn't
win,
get
not
back
win
properly.
something.
Yeah, he went 18 months without signing a player.
I've still got messages on my Twitter when we're signing certain players, and I'm tweeting Spurs going, "What are you doing?" Like Musa Sissoko, and I was like, "What are we spending £35 million on him for?" Ended up becoming an
It's
auxiliary
heartbreaking.
right back.
Everything that we want now, we had it all. Just didn't go that one step extra. We could have done everything.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
And you think, just talking about that as well, you think about how close we actually was. Like we was in a Champions League final, and it was probably one of the most boringest finals you'll ever watch of Champions League history. But we were there. We was in a 2-horse race for the league and finished third.
We were in like 3 title races in a row as well. We were right there.
We was very, very close. And as you say, it's just that's where then the backing and the players, you give him 3 or 4 players, it could be a different story.
The worst part of that Champions League, Chris, is all we needed to do was look at the opposition that day, and look what they done. They was in the Champions League final. It didn't go well for them. They went and got the goalkeeper and a centre back. It cost them 140 million or whatever it was, but it fixed everything. The next year they got to the final and won it. That was all we needed to do, is look at them and go, this is the level we need. We now need to improve the areas that we need to improve to go that next step. And instead we went, oh, that's all right. We can get there. We might get there again.
And that's a big key.
Most people said that's our worst ever transfer window as well. And Ndombele, Lo Celso, and
crazy. Like absolutely crazy. Again, you look at like the top 10 transfers of all time at Spurs. I mean, granted, money's changing, right? It is different now. So I see all these stats now where people talk about how much Ferguson spent and how much Thingy spent, and I'm like, the transfers now are just completely different. You can't compare them, but we seem to get all of them wrong. Basically, there's a couple of, I think in the top 10 it's something like you've got 3 or 4 where you kind of go maybe, but at least 5 of them are like, what are we doing?
Sanchez, Sissoko, and all that lot.
Yeah. And you're just like, what are we doing? Like, who's looked at that and gone, yeah, let's sign that off. Do you know what I mean? It's absolutely mad. So obviously, as I say, we are. For me, I think you summed it up perfectly, Bill, in the fact that, listen, it's 10 games, 15 games in. This can't go on for another 15 games purely just on the basis that I don't think we'll pick up the same amount of points. I think that if you look at the points, what we've got and what we probably deserve, I think we probably got more points than we deserve. So if we do this again, if we played exactly the same amount of games and we've done it again in the next 11 games, for instance, we're not picking up 18 points, I don't think, because I think we've had a few bounces, we've had a few ricochets, we've had a few set pieces that don't always go in, whatever that may be. But at this moment in time, if you're judging it right now, I think what Frank's done is pretty much expected. It's like he's not nothing has really shocked me. I did think we'd be better in an attacking sense, but I think obviously with all the injuries,
and he's done a pretty decent job of making us more solid, hasn't he? We're definitely more solid. Like the back. A lot more clean sheets, much more solid. Like Palhinha has been decent as a screen. I think he maybe gone too far the other way at times. It's a bit too solid. I think we're seeing, and again, I think, and I did. You mentioned earlier about I said the same for Andy as well. I think you can't escape the fact that he's had Maddison, Kulusevski, and Solanke injured all season. Like, what can a manager do with that? And now he's added Moani and Kudus to that injury list. Like, what can anyone possibly do with that amount of injuries? Like, it's unheard of to go 2 seasons in a row. We had a horrific injury season last season. This season, we've now got 11 players out again. It's mad.
And Moani is the best example. Moani, if you go on transfer market, Moani missed 1 game through injury in about 7 years. He comes to Spurs.
Last season, there's a lot of talk about is it Andy's fault because of the style of play. Like this season, our injuries have just been like someone getting smacked by Maguire's face, Bergvall is getting knocked out. Like that can't possibly be a manager's fault. Like people are just getting. No. It just shows that it's just crazy luck. Like it's horrific luck to have like 2. We're not even getting muscle injuries anymore. Like we're getting like people getting knocked out. Kudus gets scissored twice in 2 games. Like it's mad.
But this has always been the case at Spurs. Like this is what I was saying last year. Like Ange definitely takes responsibility for the hamstring injuries. He has to because it's exactly that. It's his style of play. It happens everywhere. But I keep saying there's VAR stoppages. Games are going longer. There's more games. they're more physical. It's more running. Like, this is all going to cause injuries. All of these things are going to contribute to causing more and more injuries. So, but we've always been that club. I mean, this is a club that had, and unfairly he's called sick note, but Darren Anderton, Ledley King, Eric Lamela. This isn't a Ange started off a bad. Like, we have been terrible with injuries for donkey's years.
Yeah, and I read that. I think, like, if you look at Kane, for example, I think he's missed like 3 games in the last 5 years. But do you remember when we were at our best? Kane would have a long-term injury every season.
Yeah,
like,
ankle,
he turned it around.
ankle.
Yeah, he's always did an ankle towards the end of the season, and now he's left Tottenham. It's not a thing anymore. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's something going on somewhere.
Yeah, we need to get someone into the training ground, do some sort of voodoo stuff to kind of get rid of any of the demons. Or
That's the annoying thing as well. Loads of our players get injured in training, don't they? Like, what are they doing in these training games to get injured so much? Like, Sarr did Moani for a dead leg, but all these players get injured in training.
Solanke last season, when he done his knee, apparently just fell awkwardly when taking a shot, done his knee. It's just like, it just consistently happens. It's just, as I say, it's just a crackers club. There's always something to talk about.
I saw Paul O'Keefe tweet today, didn't he, that Solanke's still on injections and he's had surgery. Like, I don't think we're going to see Solanke in 2025. I really don't. And it's, again, you just mentioned there Moani. Solanke misplayed every single game for Bournemouth before he joined us. So
played 38 out of 38 games and misses the second game when he signs the first. Like, this is, you can't buy this. Honestly, you can buy it. It's ridiculous.
So I do honestly think that is you have to take that into account with Frank. Like, we'd be a completely different team with even just one of Kulusevski, Maddison, or Solanke, and coupled with the fact that we sold Son and we didn't replace him. Really is, it's difficult for any manager to be free flowing football and all those, that's 56 plus goal contributions last season. Solanke, Maddison, and Kulusevski. That's our, those are 3 of our, if not best, 3 of our best attacking players. And he's not had them for a single game this season.
We definitely need more goals because, like, Mohamed Kudus is brilliant. I think Chris wrapped it up saying about he's better than what we've seen for a while. Obviously, Son was on the decline and everything else, but I can't see him being someone who maybe gets 10, 12 Premier League goals. Like, I think he might get you like a 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that. Yeah, but I can't see him being like a 10, 12, 15 a goal man. So if he's not getting them, who's getting them? Maddison picks up a few, but
100%. And if you look across the front line now, a lot of those players are them 5, 6 season players, aren't they? Like Tell, going to be a 5, 6 goal season. Odegaard the same, even though I think he's improved a lot this season. Richarlison, yeah, me too. Are you ever
even
more than 15?
Odegaard, Odegaard is best. You're not. If someone said to you,
you're going to get 10 goals max.
Like he's going to have the best season of his life. How many goals he get? You're going to go 10, 12. Like, he's not getting 15, 20, is he? It's just not happening.
And we've gone from having Kane and Son who are minimum 20, 30 a season to this, really. And that's when we talk about transfer windows. That's where our big problem lies in the next couple of years, I think.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was going to ask. And as I say, this could be down to signings. It could be down to certain positions. It could be just the mentality. I think that is part of the problem as well. Because, listen, you can put 10 attacking players on the pitch, but if you're asking them all to do defensive jobs, it doesn't make a blind bit of difference. So you depends on what your mentality is, what is going into, and everything else. So where do you think that we need to improve, and where do you think that maybe Frank needs to improve, but not only just him? Is it some players that need to improve? Like, I'm going to use Porro just as an example. Porro has been getting a lot of flack recently over the last couple of weeks. He's been getting a lot of flack. And I just think that this guy plays every single game. Like, he plays every single game. He's going to have bad patches, especially when we know he's not a brilliant defender. So he's going to have these games. And when you actually look at the run that we've got coming up, as you mentioned, Bill, PSG, Newcastle, Arsenal, he's possibly going to have some difficult games in them 3. He's going to be up against some top players. So where do you think we need to improve off of what we've seen so far? Other than the obvious that we need to improve and perform better, where do you think it needs to come, Chris?
I think we need a new goalkeeper. I'm not saying Vicario's terrible, but there's been games where he's pulled off a lot of good saves and he really has shown his worth. And then there's just other games where I'm just like, what's going on here? What are you doing? So he's not completely terrible in my eyes, but I feel like he just, again, Kinski I'm not a fan of. Again, there's some good stuff in there, but don't think he's a goalkeeper that's going to come in and be our number one and challenge for that. So for me, a new goalkeeper, they need to make a decision on Spence. If he's going to be a left back, then we need to go and get a right back. If he's going to potentially be as an option for right back, then we need to go and get a left back. So a wing back for me. I think if I can't see Maddison ever coming back and being the player that we all hope and think he was. So for me,
heartbreaking,
it's gutting.
My
But
favourite player.
I feel like he will play 20-25 minutes here and there, and he'll just get in some time when he can. So I know we've got Simmons to play that sort of that cam role, but I feel like we need a bit of backup there. I don't know if Bergval's going to be that backup for there. Me personally, I feel like he should be starting. If he does start, him next to a Pellinia would be a good partnership. You've got the sort of the holding and then the sort of allowing him to go forward and move on.
Yeah.
Wide left, we need to sign someone who's going to give us the width and probably the same fear factor that Kudus carries with himself. If you're playing against Kudus, you're going to be thinking, this geezer's going to just, all he's going to do is run at me. He's going to pull out skills. I'm going to have a handful. If we had another winger that was very similar to him on the other side, you then cause handfuls. It then makes the other team think, right, we might have to pull one of our defensive midfielders to cover that and double up either side. Yeah. It then pulls the middle to give them space. And then obviously I think the main one is an out-and-out striker for me, someone who's going to finish the ball. Richarlison has a good game, goes missing. Solanke, I don't know whether he fits into the style of play. I think he has a good game, and then he'll go missing 3 or 4, and then he'll come back and score again. I know I go on about it most of the time, but when you've had the luxury of having a striker like Harry Kane up front, and then you don't ever bring in the protege that is in our youth system that's been with him and sort of had that mentoring, that tutoring, and as to fill in them boots, or whether you go out and just sign someone who is maybe a level down, but again, there's that potential for him, and it's proven that he's going to score you goals. We never done that. We just signed players that maybe have played in the Premier League for teams that wasn't as good as us, and maybe it's a case of, well, if they play for us, they'll come good and they'll be even better, when it's just not worked out.
Yeah, it is tough. Bill, what do you think? Where do you think the improvements need to come?
I can't really add much more than that, to be honest. I think Chris absolutely nailed it there, to be honest. I think that's a really good summary. I think for me, one of the most important things at the moment is our left side. I think picks itself. I think Udogie and Odebear have to be playing. My biggest disappointment at the weekend was that we didn't start with those two. I was a bit concerned that Frank said after the game it was tactical rather than rotational. That was a bit of a worry for me, because I think if we'd have been a bit braver there. So my big thing that I'm going to say is I think Frank needs to be a little bit braver now. I think he's done a really good job in setting up the defence, making us more solid. Mm-hmm. But I think if we'd have gone into that, I think, and this is probably a hangover from being a Brentford manager. And at Brentford, you have to meticulously, worry about the opposition, because you're always going to be on the back foot with Brentford. At Tottenham, it's different. You can impose a bit more. I think we need to impose a bit more. And I think the way that we do that is we're going to start our attacking players more often, like Odegaard and Udogie should have started that game. I think if they do, I was not impressed with Man United at all. And then I just reiterate the fact that I completely agree, like left wing and striker is the biggest option, biggest thing for me. And we know that already, because we tried to sign a left winger in summer, Savinho, who looks a pretty decent player for Man City. That's not going to happen. Obviously, he signed a new deal. And we tried to sign a couple of strikers on deadline day. Obviously, we ended up with Mawani. Can I just ask you guys, I think left winger is going to be the big one that we're going to go for in January. And I think striker is going to be the one we're going to go for in summer. Are there any left winger options? I got one in my mind. Are there any left wing options you're looking at thinking that's who I want? Because it was Savinho for all of us, but now that's obviously off the cards. Any left wingers you guys are thinking that's who I want?
I think the left winger situation, the biggest part of it actually is who Frank prefers at left back.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because I was on a show talking about Xavi Simons, for instance. I don't mind Xavi Simons off the left. If you've got a rampaging left back, you've got a doggy on the as left back, I'm absolutely fine with him being able to play out there as a sort of a cover or that type of player. However, if you've got Spence, that player cannot be there. You have to play. For me, you just said it about Udogie and Odobert. For me, one of them have to play every single game. They don't have to play together, but if Spence is there, Odobert is the only one that offers any width. So I think it really depends who does Frank fancy best at fullback, and then the winger has to fit that profile.
I have a feeling Chris is right as well. I have a feeling that I think Spence is going to be used more on the right now. I think Udogie is going to nail that place by the end of the season, because I think under Frank in particular, when you watch Spence play for England, he's unbelievable at left back because it's a different system. But I think for Frank Ball, Spence has got to be a right back. And I think, interestingly, as soon as he went to right back against Man United, he started to look really good again.
Yeah, but also, what a good option. If you go and get, I'm not saying like a fullback, but I'm saying if you've got a left back who is solid defensive, let's say a solid defensive left back, right? You've then got, and let's be clear, we want to be a club that are playing Champions League football week in, week out, right? So not only do we want to be playing top level, but we also want to be playing regularly. If you've got options at fullback of a Porro and a Spence and a Doggy and then a Spence sort of player, you can go, the left wing is good, we can have the defensive fullback, but the right wing is not as good, they can be, and you can rotate them, and that would be perfect. So I think that Spence, I think defensively is our best fullback. I think he still shuts off, every defender does, that's unfortunate, it's just part of the thing, but I think as a fullback he's the best one, and that's where the decision needs to lie. I think Spence being at left back offers you some superb attributes. Some of the stuff that he can do, because they're coming unknown to his strong foot, is brilliant. However, it negates so much positives from other players or other positions to kind of fit him in and shoehorning him in. So I think that's the big decision. I think most people are probably going to be screaming about trying to go for Semenyo, but I think he's possibly out of reach now, unless he has a bad few months.
I think he's going to go Liverpool without a doubt.
Yeah, unless it's bad.
Mine is. I'm exactly like Chris. I want a Kudus on the left, and I think we would have had that in Savinho, but I think the one that's standing out at the moment is Ndiaye at Everton at the moment. That's the one I want.
Yeah,
I want another Kudus on the left.
But also, I could see Ndiaye just being able to go anywhere.
Yeah,
like, just being able
and Everton are not going to be keen to sell at all. Yeah. They just moved into a new stadium themselves. So.
Yeah, he was one that I thought in the summer would be a decent option. I still can't believe that we didn't go in for Grealish. But I think it was more due to location, because Everton's obviously right by where he is. But
I think his attitude as well. You mentioned about Frank doesn't like the sort of the trouble player and stuff. I think he's got a bit of a reputation, then Grealish, and I think he sort of fits into that, where maybe he didn't want to take the risk on that based on what you see. I mean, for us, we only see what gets published, and we don't know the ins and outs of it all. But Grealish just seems to have that bad boy, if that's what it is.
But he also seems to just love football. Seems to just love it. Like, he just seems to. He's the sort of player, like it's been all over the news recently, that Sunday League team, where they've got like seven. Imagine turning up. You've had a few beers the night before. You're half hungover, and you see that.
You see at the weekend that keeper saved the Cisse penalty. Imagine turning that to your mates. He saved the penalty from Happy Cisse.
It's just you would
tell one to your mates and you saved the Cisse penalty at the weekend.
But this is. I could see Grealish like still playing football at 42, like still like he's playing Sunday League or whatever, like, because he just absolutely loves football. But yeah, you're right. That's definitely a factor in signings that we would make.
He's been class. He's been standout for everything.
He's been good.
And I think it's always that way. Whereas if he's had a bad start, Tottenham fans go, "Cool, we dodged a bullet there with him. We're glad we didn't sign him." And obviously he's done really well. He's got loads of assists and that. We go, well, why don't we just go and get him? Because obviously there's a bigger picture to it, and it's always sod's law that comes in, and it's always when it's good, it's always we should have got him. So I think it's the label.
Yeah, another one we're linked with is that what's his name, Sharda at Brentford. I'll be honest, I don't really know much about him at all. I'm not going to lie, I don't spend my time watching Brentford games. So don't don't know
I've seen
about
a
him,
couple
to
of
be honest.
different things about him, but he seems very, very counter-attacking. It seems like in terms of he's almost, from what I've been told, I don't watch him enough to say, but from what I've been told, he's almost like a left forward, where it's very much leave everyone to play the ball and you just kind of finish it off. And I don't think, again, what you're going back to, Bill, is that our style of play dictates that we can't just do that. We can't just have players that do nothing and score goals. Yeah, we need, but also we all of our players should be touching the ball very often, because we're going to be coming up against low blocks. And if you've got someone who can only really run in behind, or that's their main attribute, it's going to be problematic. We've seen this in Brennan Johnson. We need players that are more like, if Brennan Johnson played at an average, like, I know we were going to say mid-table, we was low table last year, but if he played for most mid-table teams and scored 18 goals, then it would be like brilliant, unbelievable. Like, that's exactly what we need. But we need more than that, unfortunately, and that's problematic, because I don't think he's the kind of player. But I always feel like it's the same thing. It's a bit of lazy journalism as well, right? As soon as Bon Paratici comes in, we're getting every Italian player.
Yeah, I'd be a bit disappointed if that's who we ended up with on the left. I want to, we've got this new ownership, not new owners, but new people behind the scenes. I'd be a bit disappointed if we ended up with someone like that. I would like to go and have a really exciting signing. And I think it is a real shame when you look back now that if we were lining up with, Savinho, Xavi and Kudus behind a striker, that would have been a really decent team. And I think Frank hopefully knows that. That's why we targeted Savinho so much. And I can go and sign someone. Obviously, the dream for me would be Yildiz at Juventus, but can't see it happening. People talk about Leao again. I just can't see it happening.
I can't see the Leao one.
And I also can't see it happening. I think we'll go Liverpool. So, it's not a big pool of players to look into at the moment.
And I've seen today as well that Harry Kane's being linked with Barcelona. So, that could also ruin the dream of bringing him.
That dream's dying every day, isn't it? As well, to be honest.
Don't tell Chris that. Chris brings Harry Kane into every single conversation we have. It's brilliant. It's like, honestly, it's excellent. I love how he does it. He's even brought it up now, Harry Kane. I think it was Connor who came on and said he thinks that he'll go Barcelona, and I was like, nah, never. And then the more and more I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, I could definitely see it.
My gut says I think he's going to renew at Bayern, mate. I think he's smashing it there, and I think he'll get a massive deal there and to stay there. I think they could win the Champions League this year, to be honest.
I don't think we have much of a chance anymore. I did think when it went, but I don't think we have much of a chance. I think if they win the Champions League, I think we have more of a chance. I think that's a really big thing. So I'm so Bayern, it's unbelievable. Obviously not when they come up against Spurs, but I am so Bayern.
If we do that, I don't care who we've got left wing, mate. You can put
Cisse. That is the thing. But this is something that I was actually saying. It was mainly around the whole Walton situation, when people were saying we should just go splash 100 on Walton. And I'm like, at this moment in time, there are so many different holes in this squad. We don't need to buy a £100 million player. We can buy two £50 million players, and that will improve us, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas it's teams that are at the very top where they go, right, now we need the £100 player to really make the difference. But if we go and sign, I know Kane is old and everything else, but if we go and spend £70 million on Kane, then the left winger situation just sorts itself out. Like, we'll worry about that at a later date. 100%.
He's that good. Who cares?
End up getting Son back on loan from MLS for half a season or something, just to bring them all back.
That would be iconic, on the basis that we couldn't replace Bao until we got Bao on loan, and we haven't replaced Son until we signed Son on loan. So
to go back a bit further, same with Jermaine Defoe as well, isn't it? We love a buyback. Klinsmann even as well. It's part of our history, mate.
Charles is coming. Billy, fun fact: do you know which is the only club in the world that has won the title of Lane twice?
I do, but I'm not going to say them out loud. But I do know exactly who you're referring to, and it's not Chelsea, unfortunately.
It's not Chelsea. Big up, Charles. Appreciate your input, mate. Much
it's a team who must not be named, unfortunately.
So we kind of already touched on it, but going forward, if you had to select your left back for the rest of the season, Bill, I already know your answer. So you'd go with Udogie, right?
I'd go Udogie, but I'd also move Spence over to the right for two reasons. One, I think Spencer's an exceptional player. I think he's easily our best defensive fullback by a mile, mile. But we're going to break Porro, mate. We're going to break him. Like, he can't play. He's played every game for 2 years.
It's ridiculous.
He can't carry on. He has to have a rest. So that's what I 100% Udogie, and then I'd buy a left back in January as well. I see Estupiñán has said he wants to leave. So I can't remember what club he's at, but he said he's just said he wants to
Milan,
leave.
I
So
think.
I'll buy someone like that, and I'll move Spence over to the right, rotate him with Porro, but Udogie for me has got to start on that left side.
Yeah, I agree at this moment in time. Chris, which one of the
Yeah.
two would you be selected?
It's a shame because Spence was an outcast last season, and when he got his chance, he just shone and he just proved what he can do. So you feel gutted, but I think having a natural left-footed left back is what you need in the squad. And yeah, Porro going forward, Porro does give us something. He does produce, but Spence, I think, would give us probably the better balance up and down. He does get forward. He is good attacking as well, Spence. So yeah, for me,
Also, and I think
starts.
this is a real key point. I've been saying this for a little while now in terms of the makeup of your squad, right? Kudus is the type of player where, and you have this with some wingers where you just go, I don't need to get close to him. Let me just leave him and let him do his thing, because I don't. Actually getting closer to him causes more issues. Just give him the ball and let him take people on. And actually, Porro, and it depends on what tactics. So sometimes we kind of go where we play the inverted fullback, so Porro sits alongside the centre back and plays long range pass. Other times he kind of is rampaging up the wing. It depends on. But Spence will be more of a player that will just say to Kudus, "You just do what you want to do, mate. I'm not going to get near you. I'll sit here in a rather defensive position in case we lose the ball, whatever." And you kind of just let him do his thing. But when you come up against maybe like a Brennan Johnson or something like that, where he might need more support, Spence has got the athleticism to be able to get there and also get back. So I definitely feel like it's a good option. Sonny's just mentioned Elliot Anderson. For me, if we could get Elliot Anderson as a centre midfielder alongside Palhinha, what a player! I think Morgan Gibbs-White was going to be that for us.
Yeah, and I think every single club in the top 4-6 will be looking at Elliot Anderson in summer. Unfortunately, he's that good. I would not be surprised if Pep dropped the bag on him when he went to City.
I reckon 100 million, I reckon, is what's needed. I don't think he'll go for that, but
he's like the new Adam Morton, isn't he?
Yeah, and I think, as I say, I think when we was thinking of Morgan Gibbs-White, I think that was the reason why. I think Morgan Gibbs-White for us would have played as an 8 quite often against most teams.
That's the one thing that gives me a little bit of hope going into the future with Frank. Is I think Frank had a good idea of what he needed, and I think if we'd have signed, if there's a world where we'd have signed Morgan Gibbs-White and Savino, we'd be absolutely flying. And obviously, you can't do all of those things in one window, but I think Frank has that's what gives me a little bit of hope, is that he knows he needs a better, ball retention in midfield and ball progression. He knows he needs a better left winger, because we saw it. He went after them both. So hopefully going into next summer, that's what we'll do. Because I don't think you can do that much in January. I think you can maybe sign one really good player at most. Yeah,
especially when we know that money's there, right? So it shouldn't be a case of is the money isn't there.
Hopefully I haven't given any to Donald Trump this week.
But I think that's our biggest problem, is that if you was to sit down and discuss like your best team, you pick out your best fullback, your best centre back, I think the best central midfield, and I know Bergvall has got a hell of a talent, and Sarr on his day is absolutely superb. I think our best 2 central midfielders is probably Bentancur and Palhinha, but probably not as a pairing against most teams. So it's like, it's all about getting that partnership right.
Of course. And then again, you're looking at the Arsenal game thinking, I hope both of them bloody play, mate. Do you know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying.
It's the same with, Spence and Udogie, isn't it? Like, I think Udogie should be our left back, but who do I want to play on Sunday? I want Spence there to make sure they're locking up Saka. We've got to have options. It's difficult to find the right ones. I don't think Frank has quite found the right balance yet, but it's 11 games into it.
But I also think the reason why he hasn't is because so like Spence being at left back creates a problem in central midfield and also at left wing. So it's not just about getting that one player right. It's about how much that then impacts other players elsewhere on the pitch. And I think it's so evident. I don't know whether it's Frank's way of playing or whether we just have so many players that are very particular in the way that they play in that specific position. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. And can I ask you guys a question as well? Like, against PSG, Frank's first competitive game, we looked unreal. With a back 5, we looked really solid. We've not seen it since. Do you think he's going to go back to that, maybe against Arsenal? I'm surprised we've not seen it really since.
Yeah, I'm surprised as well, especially when you look at how poor we've been in an attacking sense. And not having players in form. It's almost like if you just give Kudos free reign, just let him play as he wants to. I think part of the problem is probably that it's a really demanding job on the forward, and I don't know whether he believes that any of the forwards are fit enough to do it for long enough. But yeah, I'll be very surprised if we don't see that, especially if like a Simmons gets a bit more fit or something like that. If you've got like Muani, Simmons, and Kudos just up front, you just kind of do what you can do, and we'll try to hold the fort.
And you can put a back five and Bentancur and Palhinha in front of them, and then you'd hope that's pretty solid.
I think we would definitely see it, and I agree. I'm shocked that we haven't seen it a little bit more. We have seen it at the end of games to try and see things out, and also I like Danso as well. I think Danso's
me too.
A good defender.
That's the kind of squad player you need, isn't it?
Yeah, didn't he? I think it's going to be a game of just corners and long throws against Arsenal.
100%.
I wonder if that's a factor in like Bergvall, or because I don't think we've got a long throw other than Bergvall and Danso. No one else seems to throw it.
Porro's tried a couple, but he can't do it.
But it'd be interesting as well, because I think Dragusin is almost a perfect Frank player. So it'd be really interesting to see if he comes back into the fold when he's up to scratch. Like, is he or Danso?
Takai as well. I've not seen him once. Like, we only seen him in the flesh.
Apparently, we've bought him knowing that he's got a chronic ankle injury. Listen, it might be false, but this is Spurs. It's not beyond the realms of possibility whatsoever.
We signed a defender, but we haven't even seen him in training.
It's absolutely mad. I take Curtis Jones if he was gettable. Probably not. Kone from Roma looks okay stats wise. Okay, yeah, that Kone started again for France today. I think he would have been almost a perfect player. But again, a lot of this will come down to what sort of player we're looking to get next year. So people forget that Palhinha is only here on loan.
I think Akliouche had another really good game for France as well. He looked decent against us, didn't he? He looked really good against us as well, didn't he? That looks like something we can say.
Yeah, he did look good. But that's what I'm saying. Like, we look at the end of the summer, like we're talking about. These are not January transfers. Most of the players we're talking about now, they're definitely more summer transfers. But it all depends. Like, as I say, Palhinha. Is Palhinha going to be next year? Say, for instance, is Palhinha going to be your main starting six? Is he going to look to become more progressive so that Palhinha comes into the squad, but actually just comes in possibly even just for bigger games, or is he going to step away from Palhinha altogether and try and become a more progressive? Exactly what the kind of slander that he's getting. Is he going to try and be that? So it'd be really interesting to see.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if we don't make it permanent for the price and for how good he's been. 25 mil. Yeah, I think that it's interesting. They just did some social media with him today. Some finished sentence thing or something but he talks about how he just moved house a couple of weeks ago. So I wouldn't surprise me if he's bought a place already and thinking. I think the club probably made it clear they're going to buy him. I reckon.
For 25 million.
Yeah. You're not getting better than
in the grand scheme of things. It's not.
And if he does, he might not become our starting six, maybe, but I'm sure we'll sign him.
Having him about as well will be good, because he seems like he's a bit of a leader and he's got the attributes where you want the professionalism and everything else that comes with it. So if you've got a younger player that's coming through, that's someone who you'd want them to look up to and sort of learn off of.
Archie Gray,
second top scorer at the moment, mate. Our second highest scorer, Palhinha.
Van der Ven is our top. Like, this is just what world are we living in here? Like, but so in terms of we seem to all be to agree January is going to be difficult, but we all seem to think that left wing and striker is the main sort of one. Now, not going into actual players, but for you, Chris, is more important? Do you think it's more important that we sign a striker? Let's say that all of our squad stays exactly as is. Is it more important that we have a striker, or is it more important to have a left winger?
Striker for me, because I don't think the strikers that we've got. I know Tell's been coming on and playing as a forward, but for me, I just don't. It doesn't fill me with joy when you picking between Richarlison or Solanke. That doesn't bring me.
Do you not think Muani's the number one choice? Do you not think he's number one now?
I think he needs to be, because I don't think the other two are any good. And I think, as I said last time, once Muani gets going, it'll be good. It's just getting him going. all these little setbacks here and there, obviously, we can't.
Spurs.
Exactly, yeah. And it's hard to then try and get these going when there's all these little things that come about. But I think a striker, I honestly think Solanke may go. I think there might be views for him to be moved on in January, and potentially even Richarlison as well to then make the space for the striker to come in.
And big up, Sava said this so often, but it's very, very rare. I mean, there's some players where you look over the years, like Lennon, for instance, was never world class, was never elite, but just a great player, a player that fans loved, right? How many players in this squad where if you woke up tomorrow, and can't because there's no transfer window, you woke up January 1st and it was like Spurs have sold X, how many players would you be like, oh no, really? There's so many that you just kind of like, he can go, he can go, he can go, he can go, he can go. Like, it shouldn't
probably,
be that.
Yeah, you're probably looking at what? Van de Ven, Romero, Kudus, Xavi, Bergval.
Yeah.
Probably right.
And Xavi will be on the basis of what we think he's going to be, not on the basis of what we've seen. Do you know what I mean? Because he's not been great. So, and that would be like if there be certain youngsters, for instance, that we could sell. So there's no real substance to that. Although I think Xavi will be good. But there's not even a handful of players.
You know, we always, every year we used to get like the fear that Kane's going to go, or Bale's going to go, or Son's going to go. Don't really have that anymore, do we? Like Van de Ven will probably be the hardest one to take at the moment.
Yeah,
because he's a lot younger than Romero, and then Bergval will probably be up there as well because of his potential. But we don't have that. We don't have that player that we want to look to keep every single summer anymore, do we?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Kane is just a different level, and so I think that was always going to be the same. And I don't know if you felt the same, but I just never felt someone was going to leave. Like I say that I never felt Bale was, and I never felt Kane was.
Point where it was devastating for a different reason, wasn't it? Like it wasn't like, God, we've lost him at this peak of his powers. Like, the word, like when we saw Berbatov, for example, is like devastating. Like we've lost an amazing player, and we're probably not going to get anyone that good. Kane, obviously,
there's an argument that Berbatov starts for us now.
I would put him in, mate. No.
He definitely has a better.
Never relied on pace, did he? So never relied on pace. So
100%. So where do you think is it a striker or is it left winger that's more important for you?
I think a striker as well. I don't think that there's enough firepower there at all. I think if you have aspirations of being, say for example, we get into the knockout Champions League phase, those striker options are not going to be enough to go and think, right, we could actually go on a run in the Champions League now. Mm-hmm. We need like a 20, 30 goal a season striker, which none of those three strikers are at all. Solanke was, at Bournemouth, but I think his injury record now is going to seriously. I don't think he's ever going to be, come back into the same way. Left wing, I was desperate for, but you know what? I'm turning into a big Odegaard fan. I think he's looked decent there. And I think he looks exceptionally good for a 20-year-old. So I think people forget how young he is. If we sign Odegaard and another quality left wing, people will be raving about Odegaard because he's young. Because he's our only option there. He gets a lot of stick, I think, because obviously when you mentioned at the beginning of the show, Ange got one player that improved the 11. He also, he got two teenagers that window, and people are saying, this is all we're giving Ange. So I wouldn't mind if we sort of rotate between Odegaard and Xavi, sometimes popping in there if we get a really decent striker, and then maybe in summer go and look to sign someone like Yildiz would be brilliant.
I've always said that I think the problem with our team, we've got a lot of players that are good as the number two in that position or good off the bench. Like as I say, Johnson is a prime example for me. Johnson shouldn't be starting for top four teams. Don't think he should be. I don't think he offers enough, although I've seen improvements in him and seen him do stuff in the last few weeks that I've not seen from him for a long time. So for instance, when he beat his man, I can't remember what game it was, where he dropped the shoulder on the edge of the box.
He did Man United and Copenhagen actually.
I don't think I see that last year. I think I see it once. So if he starts keeping doing that, then obviously that's a positive. But if you're bringing Johnson off the bench, if you've got Kudus and he's getting towards the end of the game and you're bringing on Johnson, that's not a bad option, especially for getting goals and things like that. Whereas if Johnson's your starting person, I'm like, and the same with Oliver. I think Oliver is a player now that he should have a star left winger. He should have, let's use Son in his prime. He should have Son in his prime starting week in, week out. Odobert should be coming on for him or playing odd games against lesser opposition. And I agree. I'm still in a Tel and Odobert fan club. I think that they're both going to
should be like
to be ballers.
Yeah, it should be like Oscar Bob at Man City or like Nwaneri at Arsenal. Do you know what I mean? Like that, or the guy that Liverpool have, the really young guy. I forget his name, but
Rio,
yeah. But you know, at Tottenham, he's our only left winger.
We're looking at him as the star man, and that shouldn't be the case for him. It shouldn't be the case for him. It shouldn't be the case for Tel. Xavi Simons are less so because Xavi Simons.
He's still 22 though, mate. He's still very young, isn't he?
But he's been a wonder kid since 14.
Big transfer
like,
fee as well. Big expectations, yeah.
Played at Barcelona, PSG. Like he's always been sort of the main guy. So I feel like he's a player. And ironically, I also feel Tel mentality wise. He's like just looking at him. I'll never forget. I think he was here for a month, and he went and done an interview after a game, after another performance.
He's another. It's the same with Odobert. It's exactly the same problem. He's 19 years old. It's mad, isn't it? I think people treat him because he come from Bayern, with a big transfer fee for a 19-year-old. Like, I forget that he's literally a kid. Like he's 19. It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, Odobert's like, I think he's like 2-3 years older than Mikey Moore, something like that. I think he is. Yeah. So when you compare the level of like people are saying Odobert's nowhere near good enough and Mikey Moore should be starting. Like Odobert's played under 21 France international, like France player under 21s in top level. Moore's played in the Scottish Premier League. Like that's the highest that he's been and struggled. Like it's so. I completely agree. I think.
I saw a really good tweet that someone said that when Semenyo was 20, he was at Newport on loan and Sunderland on loan. So there you go. Same age as Odobert now.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. We think that every player becomes like it doesn't always come to fruition that that's the case. You know what I mean? Like it's just say Odobert for me. I think he's never going to be a winger that goes and gets 15, 20 goals. And I think there's another thing that's often forgot about amongst fans is that they're a different profile of winger. Like Salah, for instance, is a player that I've watched Salah, and people might get really annoyed about this. I've watched Salah for 2-3 years and thought he offers so little to the game. He just scores goals. He just assists goals. Like he's literally given 5 moments and he gets 5 GA. Like that's what he does. He's not there to press. He's not there to worry about defensive. He's not there to work in a team structure. He's purely there to get GA. That's all he's there to do. Odobert is never going to be that player. So don't if you think that he should be getting 15, 20, he's not that type of player, and he never will be for me. He just won't. So I think it depends on what you need, and as I said, the makeup of the team as well. But I like Odobert as an option. I think he's good, but I think he should be an option. He shouldn't be the option. I think is a good way of sort of putting it. We will be wrapping up shortly because we've been going for nearly an hour and a half. Massive thank you to everyone that's joined in. Billy brings in with him an army of people from X. There is currently nearly 2,000 people watching on X. So if you can come over to YouTube and please like and subscribe. Big up to all of you for coming in. I really, really appreciate it. But what I did want to talk about is obviously we don't know what's going to happen in January. We don't know whether certain players are going to come back fit. I think Dragusin seems to be the only one that really looks sort of close. I know that Kulusevski's back on the pitch as well. I don't know. Just speaking about Dragusin as it goes, did either of you or both of you see James Maddison turning up at the training ground to watch Dragusin?
I did.
I've watched all of the stuff. I think he's put 2 or 3 videos out on YouTube, and my admiration for him has increased drastically. He always felt to me a little bit like a Grealish character, where you was kind of like, I don't know whether you'd want him around your young players. He is a player like Chris, what you said. If he struggles fitness-wise and he's not able to get to the very top level, and Spurs were like, we'll keep him and he'll be a squad player, I'm absolutely delighted for that, because that is a man that you want to be playing with and being training with consistently.
I absolutely love him, mate. He's my favourite player. Yeah, I absolutely love him. And I said to my mate, and I haven't seen a lot to think that it's differently. I don't think Tottenham play well without James Maddison. I can't think of many games in the last 2-3 seasons that we've played. Well, our very best games, James Maddison has been at the heart of all of them. I still can't, even, this season, how many games we really played well. I don't think Tottenham play well without James Maddison. I think the things that he brings, no one else can. We don't have that creative player. We don't have someone who's going to beat 2-3 men, put a through ball in. We have the lowest through balls in the league. That's James Maddison for you. He's an expert through ball. yeah, I think we really, really struggle without him, more so than any other player that's missing. He's my favourite player. I don't think we play well without him, and he gets a lot of criticism because people say, there's this thing where he plays well for a third of games, he gets injured for a third of games, and he's brilliant for a third of games. I don't think that's true. I think last season he was excellent every time he played for us. Didn't happen enough because of the injuries, but I think when he did play, I think he's our best player. So yeah, I really, really, I think I wonder in the back of his mind if he's thinking, I might not ever make it back again. I'm going to go right into the YouTube thing. Which, fair enough. I think he's got the personality for it. It's brilliant. Like you'd watch him all day, wouldn't you? Like he's got great personality.
But he's really... again, we're talking about squads and things like that. Imagine you're sitting on you're sitting there as a defensive, as an opposition coach. You're 70 minutes in, 0-0 at White Lane, and James Maddison's coming on the pitch. I mean, we do it almost the opposite with Van der Vaart. Van der Vaart, was never being on that pitch after 70 minutes. Never. He's never on the pitch. But he affected the game for the 60 he was on. And I think Maddison could definitely do that. And also, I'm not so sure he'll get back to the level that he was possibly at. But when you compare that, if you're coming off the bench, teams are getting tired. They're more and more likely to make a mistake. They're less likely to press. He'd be a great player to bring off the bench, 100%.
And my thing with Maddison is every time he's got the ball, he's looking to do something to create a goal, score a goal, create a goal every single time. We've seen these pass backs of Benson and Palini when they're passing sideways. Maddison does not do that. He's always either trying to take a man on or pass, create a goal scoring chance. So I think we miss him so much at the moment. I really do, because Xavi, I've got no doubt that Xavi will be fine. I think he's starting to show glimpses, especially now. But we expected him to be doing the things that James Maddison can do, and at the moment, he hasn't reached that level yet.
Yeah, and also, we've done it, I think it was last year, it might have been the year before, where we played, I think it was Bentancur, and we played Maddison and Kulusevski in the midfield, almost like the runners. They were both the same.
I was thinking that if you put them all on the pitch, Kulusevski, Maddison,
Palhinha allows you to do that, right? Palhinha allows you to do that. Like if you said, we've got Palhinha, Maddison, and then Kulusevski, Xavi Simons, whoever you want to pick, you're not sitting there going defensively. We're really okay, you might not do it in a Real Madrid or a Manchester City, but if you said we're playing Burnley at home and we've got Palhinha, Maddison, and Kulusevski, you're going because Kulu gets around the pitch really well, and I think that's one thing. And I think Frank is able to. I think a prime example was Damsgaard. He got him in from playing at Damsgaard went in there as almost like a wonder kid. And then everyone after the first season was going, he's never playing in the Premier League. Just get rid of him, get cut. And then last season, he was superb, running around the pitch. He was on like a free roll. So if you've got like a Maddison Kulu in there with a Palhinha, it allows you to do exactly what Spurs fans have almost been criticising Frank doing, saying, don't be defensive at home, especially not against teams in the bottom 10. Literally, let's go for it. So we put them there. So it'll be interesting to see, but I definitely think Maddison's going to be taking his time, 100%. But as I say, watching some of them videos, you can just see that. And I don't think, like a lot of people say, oh yeah, you've done it in front of the camera. You can tell that that's just his character. His character is far better than I gave him credit for.
Even when you see him with the Tottenham staff, he's got such a good relationship with all the backroom staff and the cooks and stuff like that. He's just, I think I'd be honest with you, when he was at Leicester, I didn't like him. I thought he was a bit far the other way. I didn't really know. And now he's at Tottenham. I think he's just a really good guy. Good guy. And for example, he'll go and watch the under 18s in a cup final or whatever. He'll go and watch Dragusin, as you say, in a comeback match, and he's proper Tottenham.
Watch Dragusin is massive. That's a massive thing. And obviously it's a behind the closed doors game that no one's really going to see. And then he's turning up because I think it was so cool of him to do that. And obviously he had that quite emotional moment with Romero and Bentancur, who stayed with him in the changing room after he'd done his ACL, and he was like, I'll never forget that, because he was obviously really low and everything else. So it's really good to see that these players are developing together, sort of thing. There's a real bond there, and I'm hoping that the Europa League win almost glues that together even more.
When we lost Son was like the glue of our squad, wasn't he? And I think if Maddison hadn't got injured, he would have been the face of our team. But unfortunately, he has to do it behind the scenes at the moment.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that he did get a lot of criticism last year, and to be fair, I criticised him in certain aspects of the game as well. But I think if Palhinha is on form and in the team, I think he covers up for and covers. And again, it's about this partnership. If he's able to allow him to go and do more of the stuff that we want him to do, because where do you want Maddison? You don't want him in the middle of the pitch. You don't want him picking the ball up centre backs. You want him right on as a number 10, picking holes in a defence, slotting balls through to strikers, etc. So, but the last question I've got for both of you is, and as I say, this is difficult because we don't know what's going to happen in January, and there's so much to be left in the season. But we expected, and we said that most fans probably thought we was between 5th and 8th at the start of the season. Now we've seen what we've seen. We can obviously, again, you can't judge everything because things do change. You've got Arsenal who are top of the league. You've got City and Chelsea, Sunderland, then Spurs in 5th. Where do you see Spurs finishing at the end of the season as we kind of go along? Obviously, as I say, a lot of things can change. Injuries might happen as they will at Spurs. But where do you realistically think Spurs have you changed your opinion, Chris? Do you think 8th now? If someone said to you Spurs will finish 8th now, you can take that. Would you take it, or do you think that we should be finishing higher now, given what you've seen?
Potentially between 8th and 6th, I would say. I don't reckon we're going to get in the top 4, but there's definitely the quality there to finish higher than 8th. It's just whether the performance is we can get the results that we can get. I mean, we've got a tough run in now. For me, it's just, can we produce now? We've got to get better on the pitch because we are picking up points, but the performances haven't been that great, and there's only so much luck you can ride. I mean, Man United, we should have got all 3 points there, just got into to concede at the end. But them sort of games might kick us at the end of the season where we was on for getting 3 points and we've potentially dropped to do that 5 games. That's obviously 10 points that you're dropping. So I'm still sticking with 8th to 6th for me. And I would look at that as a positive, hoping that then we then go on and build, because then it means that we're moving in the right direction and we're building from 8th to 6th. That's when next season you can go and get another 3 or 4 first team players and then start pushing back into the top 4 where we belong. Yeah.
Bill, where do you think we're going to finish?
I think exactly the same, to be honest with you. I think at the beginning of the season, I probably was hoping for 8th at the most. Now I think that's probably the minimum. So I think I completely agree with Chris, to be honest. Somewhere between 8th and 6th, I think, is probably where we'll end up, and that would be a good start. I think 8th will probably go into the Conference League, I think. Was that, or some maybe 7th or 8th?
Yeah, probably. I
think we have to be in Europe next season, otherwise it's a disaster. Especially with we did have quite a decent summer window. We have to be back in Europe. Anything else is probably a failure. Anywhere between 8th and 6th, I think will be great. There's an inside chance, which I didn't think there would be, that we might get in the top 5. If we got a really good run of form, it's doable. But I think between 8th and 6th is about right, to be honest. And I think for a first season of Frank, that'll be all right.
Yeah. And then I'm just going to wrap up. I was just thinking about it as you mentioned it, Chris. But in some aspects, and obviously everyone wants to be back in Champions League year on year, right? But in some aspects, obviously winning does create a great buzz. I mean, the buzz around winning the Europa League was absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
But is there something to say where I think the Conference League, I think if you win it, I don't think as any club really cares. I think we would have made a big thing of it if we hadn't have won Europa League last year. But I think if we won that, say for instance we finished 8th this year, next year we won it, I don't think most fans will be over that overly impressed by it, really, because some of the teams in there are absolutely terrible. But is there an argument to say if Spurs finish in the Champions League, that's amazing because we're back in the Champions League? But if we finish in Europe and Europa League, we do have another chance of potentially going all the way and winning another trophy. So there's an argument that we could win either way where we finish, because is there going to be a huge difference in terms of the players that we sign? Because as I said, I still don't think we need to go and get the elite of the elite, because I think we still need to make certain changes in the holes. What do you think, Chris, in terms of Champions League, Europa League?
Obviously, as I say, the aim is to be in a Champions League every year. If we do finish 4th and we get in a Champions League, all that allows us to do is build. If we can, the quality of player and the type of player that you're trying to sign then is that you've got that Champions League football. It's case we're back in it again next year. I don't think it changes much in the Europa League because we are in a building phase, and I think you could probably persuade a few players that look, we have a good season. We won a cup. We're building, and this is sort of the road path we're going to take, and this is where we are going from. We've gone from finish 17th to 6th, 7th, and then if we get into the Conference League, for me personally, as you say, if we win it, it's a trophy, and you take a trophy. But that would be the competition where I would like to see the players that are not getting a lot of game time. That's where it's a case of show me what you can do. Yeah, and then it gives you that sort of breathing space to then we can play some. Not saying put out a full 11 under 18 squad or anything, but there'll be players like your Archie Grays that are not getting much game time, but that could maybe start the majority of the games in the Europa Conference League, and then again get the confidence, build from there, and hopefully work their way into the squad if they need to.
Yeah, I agree, mate. Bill, do you think both of them bring with it positives? Europa League,
yeah, and do you know what? I'm becoming increasingly of the viewpoint that if you're not in Europe now, you're at a massive advantage. Like, because the schedule at the moment is so nuts. Like Man United, if they don't get in the top 4, they've massively messed up. Because playing, if Thomas Frank had one game a week, we'd be such a different team. You get no time on a training ground. You get a game every other day. Every other couple of days. There's no time to put any kind of style in or anything because you're constantly playing and rotating. I think if I wouldn't want us to miss out on Europe because we have to be in Europe as Tottenham. But if I think playing 2 games a week is really, really difficult. And I think why you're seeing teams like Sunderland, Bournemouth, and Man United doing really well is because they're playing 1 game a week and everyone else is rotating all over the gaff. It's Newcastle struggling with it. Everyone that's in Europe and Forest struggling with it. It's really, really difficult. Unless you're Man City and Arsenal, where you can have a second team that is as good as your first team, essentially, and your second team can go and win any game. It's really hard. So I think there's advantages to all of them. And I think if you're in the Europa League or the Conference League, Tottenham are probably going to be favourites for either of them. So, yeah, I'd like that as well. I think going back to the whole question about Thomas Frank, I think you could probably argue that we're probably too soon to be in the Champions League this season. It's not really right. Thomas, we would probably be doing better off if we were out of Europe in the first season for Thomas Frank. The Champions League is probably too soon for us. So it's a really weird thing with Europe, but it's great to be in there. Everyone wants to be in it, but when you're actually in it, it's really difficult to be able to do it properly.
Especially when, as you said, you're not at that elite level. If you're a club that's trying to build, and I think we find this quite regularly, and I've actually said that I think a lot of clubs are actually going to struggle this year because if I'm not right, I think there's a few clubs that it's either their first time in Europe or their first time they've been in Europe for quite a while, and I think that middle, and it's actually you look at the table.
Palace not what they won last season.
I think that mid-table block is going to be so close. Because there's going to be teams that are playing every week. There's obviously the teams that are not playing in Europe. Should be picking up more points. So I think that group is going to be real close. So if you're at the bottom of that, it could look like you're having a terrible season, but actually you're only a few points off, which is how it's gone at this moment in time. Or we need to go all out for the FA Cup this season, do or die. I mean, it would be great, but it really depends on
we're going to get Newcastle away, aren't we? We'll get Newcastle away and then we're done.
It's all about it with that. And we've been discussing basically this whole episode about us not having much luck as Spurs anyway. So, guys, massive thank you to everyone that's joined through today. Really appreciate it. We have got a huge watching on X, so please make sure you're liking, subbing, subscribing, go over to YouTube, all of that good stuff. The guys' links are in the description of the video and also in the chat as well, so please make sure you're going and following them both on X as well. Bill, what else you got coming up? You got anything coming up this week?
No, not a lot, mate. I'm just glad to have a little bit of a break, to be honest. I don't normally like the international break, but I feel like at the moment Tottenham feels like a need. I'm looking forward to a week off, especially what we've got coming over the horizon. I think I'm going on last one on Spurs in midweek with Lee Judges, so that should be a quiet one. But I'm not looking. I don't know how you guys are feeling. I'm not particularly looking forward to next month. Arsenal, PSG, Newcastle on the way.
It's one of them where you come out and
turn around big time.
Yeah. Come out of that unbeaten and everyone starts going, no, we need to go more and we need to do more and everything else, where it's a real tough one. But as you said,
I was saying to someone the other day, like Frank, at the moment, it's kind of like straight in the middle of the road, isn't it? But if he manages to get a win at the Emirates, suddenly he's got the whole fan base for that'll give you credit in the bank to the end of the season.
100%, and this is how fickle we are as fans, right? It literally in the space of a
He
month.
wins there, he's a legend. Like, we haven't done it.
Imagine that. Like, mate, I'm already thinking about it. You brought a smile upon my face. I'm going to be so devastated if we don't. I'm going to say, but Bill promised us. He promised us a win. So all on Frank.
Yes, I tell you what, if we're on this show in a month's time and we're still doing all right, we've survived. We've survived the horror months.
Yes, but knowing us, and this is typical Spurs. If someone said to me, "You go and win the next 3, and then you go and lose against, I don't know, Leeds at home, and then like Fulham," I'm like, yeah, because
we'll beat Arsenal, PSG, and then lose to Fulham at home, won't we?
Yeah, that would be my due. I'd take it. I'd absolutely take it, and I'm sure anyone watching would also take it as well. But yeah, guys, I'd say massive thank you. We had a little bit of a break. It's typical Spurs. We had 1 week off. Spoke to the medical team. They said you'll be fit and ready next week, and then we had 6 weeks off because that's just
a knock, mate.
So,
just a knock.
Yeah, it's just a little knock. So, but we're back now. We're back every single week. Thursdays 9:30 p.m. Massive thank you to all the support. We've just recently hit 1.5k, which is absolutely ridiculous considering we wasn't even streaming 1 year ago. So really appreciate the support. Thank you very much. And yeah, we'll be back being consistent as we was previously. Thank you very much. Last thing, as always, come on, you Spurs. See you later.